Welcome, everybody. This week's Joy of Gratitude has been sponsored as a merit for Refuah Shlema for Chava Rivka Bas Yehudis Malka, who is unfortunately another new young mother who is in intensive care due to COVID. So I want to share with you, I would like to share with you a story about me and my roommate, not my current roommate, but a roommate in the past. Now, I have to preface this story by explaining that I am naturally messy. It's in my kishkas, my messiness. So as an example, growing up, my mother can confirm this, growing up, there were many times that I actually didn't remember the color of my carpet. I distinctly remember as a teenager looking in the cupboard once to see what clothes I could wear, realizing there was nothing left in the cupboard because they were all on the floor. Picking up a pair of trousers that maybe I could wear again, and a large spider crawling out because it had made its nest inside the mess. And luckily my wife got me into shape, I'm pleased to say. But with that little introduction, I have to say that one of the places where I studied, I had a roommate. Let me try and describe this roommate to you. If you were to open the cupboard, you would see that on his shelf with his clothes, everything was perfectly folded. Every single jumper, every sweater was perfectly aligned, perfectly. You know, none of them was sort of wide. If there was somebody that thought something was wider, the widest one was at the bottom, and then it sort of went up like this. Of course, perfectly organized. They had their ties arranged in color order, corresponding to the colors of the rainbow on the tie rack. Their bed was perfectly made every single day. As soon as they got out of bed, they made their bed, and then they turned the top corner of the cover just over, just the corner over, so that it would be ready invitingly to welcome them back to bed that night. And of course the floor around their bed was pristine, clean and clear. So as you can probably imagine, this caused some issues. It wasn't a straightforward situation. The room was small, our beds were fairly close together, and my mess, as is the way of all mess, began to spread. This caused some difficulty, but eventually, after much discussion, we worked out a wonderful compromise. We counted the tiles between his bed and my bed. We worked out exactly what halfway between us was. And then we agreed that I was allowed to let my mess spread until that midline point. That's what he allowed me. And then I had to allow him that if anything spread over to the other side, he was immediately allowed to pick it up and throw it away. That was our compromise, and it worked well for most of the year. So why am I mentioning this story? Well, last week we discussed the concept of being grateful for this amazing and wondrous gift that we're given a combination of two complete opposites. We've got the short-term, selfish, physical drive, and we've also got this sort of long-term spiritual drive. And I said it's like two people that under normal circumstances would never be able to live together. And yet Hashem forces them together, and from that is formed our free will. But there's something else that was formed at that point when those two opposites were forced together. If you have a look at the section in the Torah that talks about the creation of the first human, Adam, the first human, it says there that Hashem blew into his nostrils the soul of life, and Adam became a living being. The words nefesh chaya, which we would normally translate as living being, are translated by Onkelos, who was the initial Aramaic translator of the Torah. He translated the words of the Torah not necessarily according to their direct translation, but according to the traditional understanding of the rabbis as to what those words mean. He translates those words as Adam became a speaking spirit. At that very moment where the neshama, the soul, is breathed into our physical external body, at that moment when these two opposites are forced together, we suddenly are able to speak. And we are the only beings that have a spiritual and a physical side forced together. Angels are purely spiritual. Animals are purely physical. We are the ones who combine those two things. And we are also the only creations on earth that have the ability to speak. Yes, there are animals who have a rudimentary ability to communicate with each other through certain sounds, but the actual proper ability to speak that we have is unparalleled, especially for its most important role. And what is the most important role of speech? It is the role of connection. At that moment, when the two opposite parts of us were forced together, forced to connect, we were then endowed with this power to connect through speech. Rav Moshe Shapira would often talk about this, and if you ever read any of Rabbi Tatz's books, he talks about this quite a bit. The mouth is the organ of connection. Where do we see this? We see that in order to keep our souls inside our body, we need to eat and drink. So the mouth is the vehicle through which we nurture our body and keep the soul inside it. In other words, we eat. The mouth is the organ through which we kiss and therefore become close to our beloved. And the mouth is also the organ that connects us to each other through the comforting, building, and compromising words that we say to build relationships. Furthermore, if we go a little bit deeper, speech represents the middle step, the connecting step between thought and action. We tend in generally to think of a higher concept, we then speak it out, and then we act upon it. And therefore, it makes sense that the mouth and the voice box are placed perfectly between the brain and the body. They're sort of halfway between here and here. They are the connection between the higher thought and the actual action. So we've been given this mouth and the ability to communicate so that we can use it to connect on a deep level to one another and to build those around us, so that we can negotiate like in that particular situation, and a peaceful outcome in difficult disputes where each side thinks the other one is completely wrong. And of course, we've been given a mouth so we can connect to our Creator, to pray to Him, to learn His Torah, and to thank Him for everything He's given us. Now, unfortunately, there are many people who use their mouth for the opposite, for causing division and strife, destruction and suffering. But that is not what it's created for. That is not what it's created for. So over the last week, we spent the last week appreciating our unique two-sided character. This week, we can appreciate and give thanks for the ability to speak that is a product of that connection. I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. Chodesh Tov. And may the arrival of the month of Adar bring with it to the world a renewed simcha, a time of real happiness and joy. I think we all need it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining.